Turn. All right. That is echoey, right? Okay. Is that better? Okay. Are we good? Okay. All right. Hi. Oh, no, that's not better. Just a moment. Okay. Is that better? Hi. Okay. All right. Oh, see, every time. Hello. Hello. Is it here? Is it where I'm standing? Okay. Okay. No, I'm still echoing. Oh. Oh. Okay, hold on. I think I know what it is. Let me turn this off for a second.
Good luck, Ian. It's going to blow you right out of the
Okay. Oh, didn't fix it. Probably should have had a sound check. Okay, I'm just gonna like do echoey announcements and then all right, I will just talk loud for a moment. Okay. Welcome. Sorry, I'm like off my game now. Hi, I'm Jennifer Vanette. I'm the outreach coordinator at the Castle Museum, so it is my pleasure to welcome you here for today's lunch and learn presentation. We do have a restroom just outside that back door. If you just to the right, if you need to partake of that at any point. There's also some refreshments, coffees, looks like cookies back there that you're welcome to help yourself to in time. We have a lot of our programming is like happening this week, so we are not going to have lunch and learn on the fourth Tuesday this month, and that is because that would fall during Memorial Cup, when we already have a lot of extras, not only here but in the whole community to take advantage of. So we're going to pause our lunch and learn, and we'll be back at lunch and learn on the second Tuesday of June, which I don't remember what that date is, and I didn't put it in here. So anyway, second Tuesday of June, we're back here. Tomorrow you can come for midweek matinee, where we'll be showing Breached, which is Delta Public Media's documentary about the dam failing 4 years ago, just about that 4-year anniversary of that disaster. And then we have History After Hours on Thursday at 5:30, and we will have Dr. Matthew Vanette from SDSU, who's also my spouse. And so for his day job, he teaches physics, but he has a great interest in the history of science. And he's going to talk about how through science, over time we've changed how we talk about what's real. So that should be interesting. So that is our week of festivities. Of course, we will have fun and games and all sorts of great stuff for Memorial Cup. So I hope you stop by the Castle Museum and during all that time. We will have this room become an extra exhibit gallery where we will reprise home ice, which is to look at our hockey history locally, and we will have the Spicer sliding glide sock skating rink. So all of you prepare your boards, all the sauerkraut and all. I'm expecting some choreograph your team. Bring your socks.
I'll do a double south house.
There you go. You ready? Get your camera ready, Catherine.
They're looking for workers.
Oh.
Yeah, if anybody wants to volunteer to referee that thing too, let me know. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speaker today. We're very excited to have Gary Flynn with us. Love the hometown pride. We're very happy to have you share that Kewpee history, but we also know it's bigger than Flint, right? So welcome, Gary.
Thank you. Well, my mic seems to be working. As mentioned, this is my fourth book, Kewpee Hamburgers, My Nice History, which began. It was influential because of White Castle, which was founded around 1921, 2 years before the first Kewpee opened. Because of the excess of White Castle, it drawn imitators. So the first White Castle you can see on the left, and it was only in recent years that Flint got its own White Castle, which is on Corona Road across from Walmart. And the success of White Castle spawned imitators, including the most blatant one, which was called White Tower. So White Castle's owner successfully sued to make White Tower look less like White Castle wannabes. Now, Kewpee was inspired by the Kewpee doll, created by illustrator and cartoonist Rose O'Neal. She did a comic page in women's magazines, such as Ladies Home Journal here, called Kewpeeville, which shows all those cute doll designs. And because of the success, it led to O'Neal developing Kewpee paper dolls, which evolved into actual dolls. And this is the Kewpee burger wrapper, which Sam Blair's son, I'll show you later on who he is, came up with this design. Now, Rose O'Neal did authorize the use of the Kewpee name, although for trademark reasons, the doll is spelled Kewpie, but for trademark reasons, it's spelled Kewpee. And the one stipulation that Rose O'Neal had for copying the Kewpee doll design is that the little wings on the Kewpee dolls had to be clipped. That's why you can see on the wrapper here that the Kewpee doll is wingless. And there's the founder, Samuel Blair, better known as Old Man Kewpee, an Indiana native who worked several jobs before moving to Flint. And in 1923, he opened up his Kewpee hamburger stand, which was located in downtown Flint on Harrison Street, behind the old post office. So, starting with that simple wagon-like hamburger stand, it did expand. You can see the additional space that would put in the back. And later on, this is how it looked probably in between, but note that the Halo Burger, which evolved from the very first Kewpee for legal reasons, had to alter the sign. So instead of the Kewpee doll, you see the slogan, 7 days without a Halo Burger makes 1 week. And instead of saying Kewpee Hotel, it said Halo Hotel. Why it was called Hotel is lost to history because Kewpee never offered lodging. And there's Sam Blair in front of that original Kewpee location on Harrison Street. Now, downtown Flint at that time had several public drinking fountains. However, he decided to not only include a drinking fountain of humans, he also made it for dogs. Now, he was a rather colorful man. He had at least 4 marriages, and wife number 4, this was in 1941, was 50 years younger than him. And at the honeymoon, wife number 3 was invited. This makes for a nice screwball romantic comedy. And on the right, you can see how the Kewpee hamburger stand evolved into an actual restaurant on Harrison Street, which when Old Man Kewpee retired in 1941, his manager Bill Thomas took it over, And after he acquired the building itself in 1958, he remodeled it so it looks like this. That's the way I remember the original Kewpee location downtown. Which in 1967, because in 1926, he not only gave the operator of Kewpee in Toledo the rights to open up his own Kewpee in Toledo, he also acquired the trademark rights. Edwin Adams was his name. And in 1967, he demanded a full franchise arrangement, which most of the Kewpees objected to. So the number of Kewpee locations dropped from 60 to 6 in 1967. And Bill Thomas changed the name of his Kewpees to Haloburger. And there he is on the left, Bill Thomas. And after Bill Thomas died, his son Terry Thomas took over. Now, Bill Thomas opened up his second Kewpee in downtown Flint in the former Verner's Ginger Ale outlet. On the left, you can see how the Verner's Ginger Ale outlet looked after it became a Kewpee hamburger place. And this is how it looks today on the right-hand side. By the way, the Verner's advertising mural on the left has been restored twice over the years. And on the left, you can see the Kewpee hamburger newspaper ad when it was the Kewpee. Then after the name was changed, how it looked with the Haloburger's new mascot of being an angelic cow. The oldest surviving Kewpee is in Lansing, which opened just after the Flint Kewpee opened up. And this was his original location on Shiawassee Street on the north end of downtown, across from what was then called Lansing Central High School, which became the campus of Lansing Community College. And Kewpee in Lansing is on its fourth generation of ownership. And you can see here on the left, you see the third generation operator, Gary Weston, and his late father, Russell Weston, the second generation operator of the Lansing Kewpee, at the downtown Saginaw Kewpee location as it looks today. Now, there was also a Kewpee right across the street from Michigan State University on Grand River. It was a major hangout spot for MSU students. It was originally founded by the Lansing Kewpee operator, but he sold it. It became known as Gene's Kewpee Cafeteria, after Sergeant Gene, who had it. And then there was Ralph's Kewpee Cafeteria, which went over the years to 3 operators. And in the 1960s, they dropped the Kewpee name, and it was Spiro's Kewpee Cafeteria. But then in the mid-60s, it was condemned and torn down along with a standard station next to it to make way for Jacobson's department store. Of course, you know what happened to Jacobson's. There was one in Saginaw, too. Yes. It's now an office building and with ground floor retail storefronts. And there's the interior of the Kewpee in downtown Lansing, just steps from the state capitol. And they won a trophy in Miami, Florida, with the best burger. Now, Kewpee and Flint and Haloburger is famous for their olive burgers made with sliced olives. Lansing has their own version of the olive burger, made with a secret olive sauce created by the current Kewpee operator's great-grandmother in Lansing. In fact, last summer, before my Kewpee Hamburgers book came out, I was invited to take in the Olive Burger Festival at the Lansing Lugnuts ballpark, Jackson Field in downtown Lansing. Unfortunately, Autumn Weston, the operator of Kewpee, had another commitment, so I was holding a large Kewpee sign when I was walking around and got a lot of attention. I did have a display of selected pages devoted to the Lansing Kewpees, but being the only person representing Kewpee at that time, got a lot of attention. Unfortunately, when Autumn Western finally made it to the festival, I had already left. But we've been good friends ever since. So we have a special place with that Kewpee in downtown Lansing, and this is how it looks today on Washington Square. Upstairs, there's a yoga studio called Firefly, which is operated by Autumn Weston's sister. Now, there are other Kewpees. There are 5 Kewpee locations total that are left. I mentioned Lansing. There's also one in Racine, Wisconsin. Well, this is how it looked back in the 1930s. Eventually, a parking ramp was built right over it. Now, one of the operators at Kewpee in Racine, his name is Walter Block. This is a photo of him from 1943. Now, over the years, that parking ramp, well, let's just say that it got condemned, but they couldn't save that Kewpee. So the parking ramp and that original Kewpee was torn down. They couldn't find a suitable location. So the owner of the Racine Kewpee bought the land back and built a replacement Kewpee. So this is it in Racine, Wisconsin. Now, when I was working on the Kewpee book, a friend of mine, Joel Rash, was making a circle tour around Lake Michigan. So I told him about the Racine Kewpee. So he went there, had a nice lunch, and took some pictures. So this is the interior of that Kewpee location in Racine, which I understand has a nice display of vintage Kewpee dolls. In 1928, a Kewpee location was opened by a Michigan native who was inspired by the Michigan Kewpee locations to move to Lima to open up his own location in a stand, which, as you can see, is enclosed, protecting the patrons from the elements, which the following year in 1929 was fully enclosed. 11 years later, that hamburger stand was replaced by a full-size restaurant, and that is still there today, is the oldest surviving Kewpee that was opened as a Kewpee restaurant. It is little changed from when it was built. In fact, this is me in front of that downtown Lima Kewpee on Elizabeth Street. And when I did my book signing at the Lima Kewpee, I was interviewed by the local TV station, WLIO, which first interviewed me via Zoom, and then at the Books A Million store in the Lima Mall, which had underestimated demand. So they were sold out of their stock of books within a half hour. So that was a very impressive one. I shared the TV interviews I've done to promote my Kewpee books. I can share them later on. And this is the interior of that historic downtown Lima Kewpee. Little change from how it looked in 1939. As I mentioned, there are 3 Kewpee locations in Lima. This is the one on the west side of Lima, and the one on the east side location, which inside has a nice display showing the history of Kewpee in Lima, as well as this display showing the original Kewpee Hotel hamburger design for the wrappers, as well as the Kewpee doll statue. And you probably see over her shoulder a little wing. Now, I mentioned that that wrapper design was created by Robert W. Blair, one of Sam's sons. So here he is at a trash can showing the Kewpee doll design. And on the lid of that trash can is a slogan, "We cater to all the folks," like you saw in the hamburger wrapper design. Now, you probably heard of Wendy's and Dave Thomas, who founded Wendy's. Now, he was adopted as a baby and spent a lot of time in Kalamazoo, Michigan, living with his grandmother while his father was an itinerant worker who had to go to where the jobs are. So in the summer, Dave Thomas stayed in Kalamazoo and dined at that Kewpee Hotel location in Kalamazoo. Of course, that's long gone now. But over the years, Dave Thomas, well, he worked in the restaurant business, first as an employee. But more significantly, Dave Thomas worked at a restaurant that was an early Kentucky Fried Chicken franchisee. So he became a KFC employee eventually. But then he has some differences with the management and eventually set up the first Wendy's in Columbus, Ohio. Now, you'd think that hamburgers and french fries would go hand in hand. Well, they didn't always. In fact, the Flint Kewpee didn't introduce french fries until 1950. So here's an ad from that time saying that Kewpee on Harrison Street was now serving french fries with their burgers. And as for the original Kewpee in Lansing on Shiawassee Street, it, like the first Flint Kewpee, had a drive-through window. So here are two different menu boards from the original Shiawassee Street Kewpee. The one on the left is an older one, and the one on the right after that would show that it sold beyond burgers. That's a nice varied menu they had. Now, at its peak, there were about 400 Kewpee locations, which was back in the 1920s, which was claimed by the author of a book on the history of White Castle. But the combination of the Great Depression and World War II era meat shortages caused the Kewpee locations to drop. So I did find some Kewpee ads. So here's one for Kewpee in Akron, Ohio. Here's one that was in Battle Creek, Michigan. I understand the operator of that Kewpee in Battle Creek was a cartoonist. And he came up with a series of ads showing his drawings, such as the boss, who has been reassigned to another location, decided rather than move, he decided to just jump off the building to his doom because he was missing those hamburgers. Now, as for this Kewpee in Bellflower, California, a Los Angeles suburb, I don't think that was authorized by the owners of the Kewpee trademarks in Ohio. It didn't last very long anyway. Benton, Illinois. Now, Benton, Illinois is a coal mining town, but its claim to fame was George Harrison's sister of the Beatles had a sister whose husband worked in Benton, Illinois. Well, in 1963, with George Harrison becoming a major star in Europe, this was before they took over America, he decided while he had a little break to go to America. He went to Benton, Illinois, went to the music store there, picked up a guitar, went to New York City. That was probably the last time George Harrison was able to be a regular tourist without getting mobbed. Now, Kewpee was in Benton Harbor, Michigan. Up north, there was a little Kewpee hamburger stand next to a grocery store in Croton Township in Luego County, which I understand has a nice lake. There was one in Elkhart, Indiana. Findlay, Ohio, which, by the way, the operator of the Lima Kewpee wanted to open up one in Findlay, Ohio, but he discovered there was already a Kewpee in Findlay, Ohio. So he opened Wilson's Sandwich Shop, which is, I understand, still there in Findlay. I understand that although the directory in Findlay, Ohio, mentioned that Adams was the operator, but I didn't know it was the actual Edwin Adams who operated the Toledo Kewpee as well as the rights to the Kewpee trademarks, or was it a relative of Adams? Now, as I mentioned, the Kewpee locations in Flint became Haleburger in 1967. Around 1979, 1980, the operators of Kewpee in Toledo franchised another location in Flint on South Dordt Highway, which gave Terry Thomas headaches because people in Flint, in fact, there were some old timers in Flint who still call Halo Burger Kewpee. So apparently a contractor in Grand Blanc had the franchise for the another Kewpee on Dordt Highway, but that didn't last very long because by 1981 it became a Michigan National Bank branch. Now, Russell Weston wanted to set up a Kewpee location in Grand Ledge, not far from Lansing. However, after about 6 months, the Kewpee operator in Toledo said, no, you cannot operate as a standalone Kewpee. It had to be a branch of the Lansing one. So, to make a long story short, he changed the name to Rusty's Drive-In. No idea what happened to it. Now, in Grand Rapids, the Kewpee operator was very successful. In fact, one of the operators, in fact, his son, became a Grand Rapids attorney. He got to have a nice conversation with him. So this was the original Kewpee hamburger stand in Grand Rapids. This was shortly before it was dismantled and replaced by an actual restaurant, which looked like this in 1937, which a decade later was expanded in 1949. At the same time, a second Kewpee location opened in Grand Rapids. Now, they wanted to expand beyond the Kewpee territory. So to do that, they had to change the name to Mr. Fables at the location. However, in 1970, they still had one location that was still a Kewpee at 2300 South Division, while they had other Kewpee locations in the Grand Rapids area. Mr. Fables went through a couple of subsequent owners before disappearing after the turn of the 21st century. That Kewpee in Kalamazoo I mentioned, that Dave Thomas, the future Wendy's fame, that also began as a simple hamburger stand. And here's one that was in Kokomo, Indiana. Here's one that was in La Crosse, Wisconsin. But note that they copied the White Castle plug for buying by the sack. They decided to have a special Sunday special of 10 burgers for $1. That was only on Sundays, though. That was 1960. Now, among the lost Kewpee stories is the one in Muncie, Indiana, which got a lot of press coverage, and for good reason, because the Kewpee in Muncie was next door to Muncie's newspapers. So all those reporters and pressmen, they had lunch at that Kewpee. Then here's one in Portsmouth, Ohio. One in Sandusky, Ohio, where Cedar Point is, of course. I understand the building's still there, not looking like that anymore. But one part of it is a Subway, and the other part is an Italian restaurant. And now I can tell the whole story of Kewpee in Saginaw. Now, when I was working on the Kewpee book, in the back there's a index of the Kewpee locations I found at that time. And I knew there was one location on Federal Avenue, which was what the Polk directories at the Flint Public Library had. So that was all the records I have. But once the Castle Museum caught wind of it, they let me know that there were other locations. Dale Doyle founded the Saginaw Kewpee in 1927. And 2 other locations opened. But by the 1930s, I had thought it was closed because of the Great Depression, but no, Dale Doyle decided to run for the state senate. And he served a term in the state senate from 1934 to 1936. He also was a salesman for a coal company. But then by the late 1930s, decided to open up a hamburger stand again. And so by 1939, I understand, he opened up the first Doyle Hamburgers at downtown on 80 West Genesee. Of course, there were other locations of Doyle's Hamburgers in Saginaw. I think there were 3 at its peak. By the way, one Kewpee in 1935, I understand, I think it was 36, changed its name after it got sold. So in the mid-1930s, 2 Kewpees disappeared in Saginaw and one changed its name. And so Dale Doyle, he created his unique hamburger, which was scrambled. And that became very popular. When the Castle Museum was doing some research on it, they wound up doing a 6-part series of articles about Dale Doyle and the Kewpees and Doyle hamburger locations in Saginaw. And then at the end, they decided to do some reminiscing and go enjoy a burger at the Lansing Kewpee and then at the Birch Run Halo Burger. Oh, yes, and they enjoyed going over there and enjoying the food. They also tried to copy those scrambled burgers that Dale Doyle provided. The Kewpee in South Bend, Indiana, was a major hangout spot for Notre Dame students. Now, in Toledo, Edwin Adams, as I mentioned, he operated the Kewpee locations in Toledo until he died suddenly while visiting his daughter in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so his widow ran it for a little bit before it got sold. So he had that, as well as a second Toledo location on Monroe Street. Then after new owners took over, here's one that opened in 1979, around the same time that one was opened in Flint. That didn't last very long, as I mentioned. And he also owned a Kewpee in Utica, New York. Edward Adams did. I understand that that location was replaced by a Burger King, and then I understand it became a Dunkin' Donuts, but not that building, of course. It was a hangout spot for students in high school or college in Utica. Here's one that was in Winona, Minnesota, in Peoria, Illinois. Up north in Mackinac City, right across the street from where the ferry dock used to be before the Mackinac Bridge was built, there was a Kewpee Hotel hamburger stand in Mackinac City. This photo was in one of the Arcadia publishing books, but I couldn't get the rights to it, so that's why I wound up being in the slideshow instead of in the book. Now there's me doing a selfie in front of the last surviving former Kewpee in Flint on South Saginaw Street in the former Vernous Ginger Ale outlet. And inside, it's a little changed from when it was a Vernous Ginger Ale outlet. You can probably look in the ironwork. You can see the V on the ironwork, and those light fixtures were used in other Vernous outlets too. Looks like the one in Flint is the only one that's still around. And that's my presentation, although I do have some videos I can share. But first, do you have any questions?
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So, they call it Kewpee, or you call it Kewpee Hotel Hamburgers, right?
Yeah.
They never actually had any rooms in a hotel.
Right. No lodging at all. Just hamburgers.
You don't know where the hotel came from.
That's lost to time.
Okay.
Yes.
Is hamburger and hamburger interchangeable?
Yeah, they're
Does
interchangeable.
the ER come on for what reason?
What?
Because through your stuff, it changes back and forth all
Yeah.
the way.
Well, originally it was Hamburgs, as in Hamburg, Germany.
Okay.
And I guess they added the ER which is how we got hamburger.
But we don't know why.
Right, all I can think of is that they probably originated in Hamburg, Germany.
I mean, to this day, I'm gonna go get some, not ground beef, but I'm gonna get some hamburger.
Mm-hmm.
Or, it still is in use today. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Oh, I have another question.
sure.
With all of those locations, were they paying money to use that name?
Yes, they were paying money to the owners of the Kewpee trademarks
Through all the years?
through all the years.
Wow.
So the operators of the Kewpees in Lansing and Racine, Wisconsin, they still pay a licensing fee to the operators of Kewpee and Lima. Yes.
I was on the website of the Kewpee in Lansing there and looked at their menu, and they showed a crumble hamburger. Is there any correlation between that and the Doyle scrambled?
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
Of course, each Kewpee had their own style of hamburger in each town, but the claim to fame in most of them was the Olive Burger.
Was there any other particular aspects about their hamburgers, like McDonald's, where they're toasted? Other than the toppings, why were people so taken with their hamburgers?
Yeah, of course, unlike McDonald's or Burger King or places like those, where everything is standardized, so wherever you go, anywhere in the world, when you go to those major fast food places and see that their burgers are exactly the same, that's not the same with Kewpee, where they're all different.
Okay. So they got the name, but they didn't get the recipe or...
Right. All they got was the name and the wrappers.
They're different in what way, though? The shape of the burger? I don't get it.
Yeah. Although I understand that with the Lima Kewpees, they had freshly made hamburgers that was square, and that was copied by Wendy's.
For example,
Oh yes, the sliders. Of course, the unique thing about the sliders is that they punch holes in the burgers to make them cook better.
I had cousins in Flint, and when we were teenagers in the late 50s, we would go uptown, spend the day, just roam around. My uncle would always give us $5 for 3 of us for our hamburger fries and our drinks. So it was quite a treat.
Yeah.
Good memory.
Yes, great memories. See if I can get this mouse to. Yeah, I got videos. Just have to bring them up. Okay, found where to go. I'll go to the videos. When the book came out, I did interviews with TV stations here in this area and in Lansing as well as in Lima. I was interviewed by Channel 5 and Channel 12 locally. I like the Channel 12 interview, but the Channel 5 interview shows how not to do an interview.
This next story might have you craving a big old burger. Flint is known as the vehicle city, but it's also in the history books for burgers. And here to tell us more about Flint's connection to the iconic American food is Gary Flynn, author of the brand new book, which he has right in his hands, Kewpee Hamburgers, A Mighty Nice History. Gary, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And you dressed the part today.
Exactly.
So for those of us who aren't exactly aware about Kewpee's origins and the burger history in Flint, would you mind going over what Kewpee started as, when it started?
Sure, it started 100 years ago here at Flint, downtown on Harrison Street. The simple wagon that was a small hamburger stand founded by Samuel Blair, also known as Old Man Kewpee.
Okay.
And they became very successful. Here's that hamburger stand right there, which developed into a larger hamburger stand, 1926, another Kewpee operator in Toledo bought the rights to the Kewpee trademark. So between the two, up to 400 locations of Kewpees were open at their peak.
Wow, and it's the second largest burger chain, correct? In the country?
Well, actually, the second oldest.
Second oldest, excuse me, second oldest, but 400 locations, wow. And you dug up a lot of really cool vintage pictures of the Kewpee locations. Can you kind of still see some of those remnants throughout mid-Michigan?
Yes, the downtown Halo Burger is the last surviving former Kewpee, and there is one Kewpee left in Michigan, the oldest surviving Kewpee in Lansing.
Wow, very cool. When did Kewpee become, or when did Halo Burger, excuse me, spin off from Kewpee?
The Kewpee operator in Toledo, who owns the Kewpee trademarks, demanded a full franchising arrangement, which Bill Thomas, who operated the local Kewpees, objected to. And so in 1967, he changed the name to Halo Burger. And he wasn't the only one. There were around 60 Kewpees at that time, but they dropped the number to 6.
Wow, wow. And you have several books here, and tomorrow you're doing a book signing, correct? Where and when is that?
It will be to mall from 2 to 4 at Totem Books at the corner of Court and August Streets in Flint.
Wonderful, Gary Flynn. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, that title is Kewpee Hamburgers, A Mighty Nice History. Thank you for joining, and if you have any more ideas on what you would like to see on our show, send them to us at WNEM-4pmnews@WNEM.com. Just use the subject line, 4 p.m. News Spotlight.
How many times did you say, wow?
Have you done any research on Bob's Diner?
Uncle Bob's, I've known that the Newblatt family had that. And I was kind of concerned about the old diner because we knew that it, along with 2 other diners, were moved to Rockford, which then went bankrupt. Now here's the Channel 12 interview, which I'm very satisfied with.
For families and visitors to Flint for years. We're talking about Kewpee Burgers, later known as Halo Burger. Joining us in studio this morning to talk about Kewpee and the history with his new book. Take a look at this. Looks great. Kewpee Hamburgers, Mighty Nice History. Welcome, author Gary Flynn to Good Morning Michigan. Hi there. How are you doing?
Hi, doing well, thank you.
Look, you were decked out in the Kewpee apparel. We got the picture of this is South Saginaw Street, right?
Yes, that was Kewpee number 2, the former Burgers outlet, which is now the flagship Halo Burger.
Yeah, so first off, Gary, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, and why are you so interested in Kewpee's history?
Yes, of course, I'm a Flint native. Kewpee's my 4th book, and I've written 3 previous books about Flint history, but...
Specifically Flint, yeah, hidden history of Flint, lost Flint, but this is the star today. I'm going to hold up the book here so folks at home can see it. So what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I was asked by my editor to write a Flint-oriented book, and Kewpee, Halo Burger, is celebrating its 100th anniversary this year.
Oh, that's exciting. So yeah, there's still, we were talking a moment ago, there's still Kewpee Hamburger in Lansing, right?
Yes, that's the oldest surviving Kewpee, and there are also Kewpees in Lime, Ohio, 3 locations where they're based now, and one in Racine, Wisconsin.
Well, so for folks who maybe aren't familiar with the history, give us the cliff notes. When did Kewpee start? And it has a very interesting, I guess, mascot, if you will, right?
Oh yes, the Kewpee doll, very popular design created by Rose O'Neill around 1909. It started as a comic page in women's magazines, which, due to its popularity, that she developed, Rose O'Neill developed paper dolls, which evolved into actual dolls.
Interesting. And then you put them together with burgers, right, as an advertising.
Yes, Sam Blair, the founder, 100 years ago, was inspired by the doll to make it the mascot, although he altered the spelling to Kewpee instead of Kewpie.
Oh, interesting. And so, you know, talk about just how this is such a rich part of Michigan history.
Yes, when that hamburger stand on Harrison Street near Kersley opened that was very popular. And so Sam Blair began licensing the Kewpee name to other Kewpee operators, including the Lansing one, one of the earliest ones.
Yeah, we're seeing picture. There was also a hotel, right?
Yeah, it was actually, they called it a hotel, but it did not offer lodging. The ad you saw was for the Kewpee that was in Saginaw that lasted until the Great Depression.
Interesting. It's such an interesting part of our history too, right? I mean, honestly, when I first started learning about Kewpee, at first, if someone is not familiar, you see it and you're like, a doll, a hamburger chain? It's just an interesting combination.
Yeah, right. The two gentlemen you just saw are the operators of Kewpee after Sam Blair retired. Bill Thomas took over Kewpee after Sam Blair's retirement. He opened up the second Kewpee that you see here, and in 1958 acquired the original Kewpee on Harrison Street, was developed into an actual restaurant.
Interesting. Yeah, there's so much to learn about Kewpee. Again, it's unique to Mid-Michigan, and you can read it all in your book. And looking through your book, there's so much to learn. So where can people find your book?
Here, Barnes & Noble sells it. If you're out of town, online sources like Amazon offers it.
Yeah, very nice. Kewpee Hamburgers, A Mighty Nice History by Gary Flynn. Here in Flint, there's a website on your screen as well. You can learn all about the history of the burgers, the chain, how it grew, and how it changed over the years, and most of all, the Kewpee doll.
Yes.
Very intriguing stuff. Thanks for coming on, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah. We're back after this break.
Yeah, so that was a nice one. I can show two more videos. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Here's the one in Lima, Ohio, when at the mall.
Meanwhile, coming out to meet the author of a book about the city's favorite hamburger. Gary Flynn, author of Kewpee Hamburgers, A Mighty Nice History, was at the Lima Mall this afternoon to meet local Kewpee fans, talk about the history of the chain across the century and several states, and autograph copies of the book. Many stopped by the table to purchase a copy not only for themselves, but also for friends and relatives who have since moved away and miss being able to eat at Kewpee. The author has been looking forward to the Lima signing for a while, and so have residents.
Of course, I've decided to be in Lima, Ohio, Kewpee's home base currently, to have a book signing, and I'm amazed by the warm reception I've been getting, as well as those who, unfortunately, when they live in a city like Toledo that don't have a Kewpee anymore, there's a bit of nostalgia.
Kewpee means different to everyone, but one man who came for a copy says the restaurant is the reason he's here.
My mom used to work at a Kewpee back in the 40s, late 40s, and my father worked at Irene's shop right next door to her. So my father came in for lunch one day and met my mom, and eventually they got married, and they had me. And my dad used to come in every day, and he was a very good customer.
The 127-page book covers topics from Kewpee's arrival in Lima to the personal life of founder Samuel Blair, also known as Old Man Kewpee.
And one more video to show. In my research, I discovered there was an animated TV commercial for Kewpee in Toledo, which was founded in 1926. I had to make a little bit of a correction, but and here's that commercial, which I made into my own ad.
The Kewpee restaurants in Lima, Ohio, Lansing, Michigan, and Racine, Wisconsin are all celebrating 50th centennial this year, as is Kewpee's spin-off Hamburgers in Michigan. To celebrate this new book by Gary Flynn titled Kewpee Hamburgers, A Mighty Nice History, available from Arcadia Publishing.
Oh, one more time. Kewpee Hamburgers, take one time. Makes you want to go flippity-flop. Kewpee.
I knew this would be a nice concluding video to end this presentation.
Well, we want to thank you so much for coming in. There are books available, and we can find them for you, so come check that out too. But thank you very much for joining us. And Tom, I did get your book signed.
Oh, thank you.
Upstairs.